I have a stalker, and that person tried to kill me. This is one of these situations where I have not addressed this on purpose because there was a trial that was taking place, and now that trial is now completed. I wasn't in the mental space to address what was taking place. I had a very extensive healing process. If you kind of go back to like where you would say kind of my hiatus was taking place on here on the channel, it was like during this kind of like healing process and really for extra security measures. I stopped posting live. I really adjusted my schedule. I completely changed my location, my whereabouts, who I was interacting with. This is a real life thing. And now it is public knowledge and record. So I am going to say the person's name because it has led to a conviction of felony stalking and domestic violence. But I'm not going to keep repeating his name over and over and over again, right? You can do your own Googling um, and um, and whatever research that you want to do to verify this information. But I think I have a pretty good track record of not lying about my experiences in general. And when it comes to just like sharing with you guys what's actually going on in my life. So you're probably like, why are you addressing this now? Well, yes, like I said, the trial is over with. And I'm really just like in a different place in my life, in a lot more happier space. And I have so many amazing, like positive things. Even mind you, the road has not been like, it's not been, what's the word that I'm looking for? Without obstacles and bumps, especially over the past couple months. So much stuff has been going on in my life, but I have so many really like dope things and positive things that I want to share with you all in the next couple weeks. I don't want to have to address that over and over again. And I feel like it's always best for me to share my story versus somebody else trying to share it on my behalf. Or let's say it comes up in interviews later on down the line, we can always point to this video and this reference of me essentially just kind of telling a good chunk of my story. Everything I'm not going to get into, but you guys are going to get the meat of like what took place and how we got here today. And so as I, in the future continue to share my positive experiences, I also don't want you guys to confuse this previous situation in relationship with my current relationships in friendships and family members that I have. I want to make sure that it's something that we can have a separate recount of what is actually taking place. So, with all that being said, some of you might have fast forwarded. With all that context, here we go. So, in 2018 to November 2021, I was in what I would now describe as, and the reason why I say now is because a lot of times when you're going through things, you don't have the correct vocabulary and you're not able to process what's taking place, right? I was in a domestic violence relationship. And by domestic violence, I mean in every sense of the word. Uh, Physically abusive, emotionally abusive, mentally, spiritually, and financially, right? And there's other things that allegations that I'm not going to discuss. Um, but what has been convicted, right, and like proven already is that physical abuse. Some of the financial abuse, obviously the emotional and mental and all of those things, and the verbal and everything else, right? That is now, like I said, public document and public record. The person that I was in a relationship with for this entire story, his name is Joshua Moore. Like I said, that is public record. I mean, I can give you the middle name and all that, but you guys could pretty much, if you know my name, my real name, and you know his name, you could do a Google search and you could just find all this information out itself, and what court system we were in and where these events and stuff took place, all of that, right? So throughout that relationship, so it went from domestic violence, right, to a stalking situation. But I'll give you some of the events that took place in 2018 through 2021. Events that he choked me on multiple occasions to the point of blackout, and what I would consider to be attempts to actually kill me. There was one particular incident near his residence where I literally was screaming for my life to the point that a stranger that I didn't know about actually came and pulled me, pulled him off of me, out of in me, pulled him off of me so I can get out of the video. And I was running to that stranger's car in order to get away. And there's another recount of that in trial. And just so I can get away from safety from him. Like a lot of the times, freak, I'm gonna have to pause because stupid battery's about to die. Hang on. All right, back to it. Sorry, I had to let my dog in and then readjust where I was at so the charger can stay charged. Putting me back in this. I think I kind of left off. Yeah, so that was some of the incidents. There were several other incidents where objects were thrown at me. I was body slammed on the floor. What else? There's just so many moments. And it's like, now that I'm talking about it, it's almost like an out of body experience, because it's like me describing like something that happened to an individual, because I'm very much not in the same place anymore. And so sometimes when I think about everything that took place, of course I'm like, you know, how did I understand now how I got there, and I'm gonna get into that in a second, but like, it's like something, it's like an out of body experience to think about. It's like, almost like a Dang Medea movie with all these things that I was experiencing throughout that period of time. What else did I touch on? Like the financial abuse portion of it. I was taking care of him and some of his family members. Some of them are under the age of 18, so I'm not going to mention their names. And it's really not about them. It's really about his actions. So I want to keep it on that, right? And he wasn't working, refused to work at times. Not even at times, majority of the time. Excuse for freaking everything. But this is like, that's getting into the ins and outs of things. At one point, I had bought him a car. I was paying for the car note. I was paying for him. I would find him little jobs, and then he would magically quit. Just all types of portions of that. Of course, there was lots of cheating on his end, endless lies. He was a habitual liar to the point. And I don't know this person, who this person is today, but based off of my encounter of who this person was for those years, probably more likely than not, he's the same person. I truly hope that he becomes a better person for himself and his family. I truly hope that. But doubt it. So going back, habitual liar. If he told you like the sky was blue, go outside and check it, like that bad. And so you're like, okay, so how did we get here in the first place? I'll give you kind of the initial story. I mean, mind you, 2018, I was 23 or about to be 23, right around that age. And so I was much younger, right? And typically with age is not the same wisdom. That doesn't mean you're dumb. You just don't have the same wisdom that we now have now. Now I'm 28, about to go on 29. Like, I would never go for any of this, right? Then also, let me give you just insight and background. I think what worked to my disadvantage, how this person was able to manipulate and abuse me, is usually the opposite of what happens to some domestic violence survivors, right? For me, I came from a very functional background, like two-parent household. You guys have met my dad. You've met my mom. Dad, years in law enforcement, background in sports. Mom, law enforcement, real estate, interior design. I grew up in a healthy household where, yes, we saw arguments, but I've never even seen my dad call my mom. I'm 28, and I've never even seen my dad call my mom out of her name, or vice versa. Never laid a hand on her. and just like, just you know, they had disagreements, but there was always some type of resolve, right? Then I grew up, you know, both of my parents are religious background. I consider myself to be religious. My mom would say things all the time like people do better when they know better. um my my dad, it was the example of what a husband and a father is supposed to be. And so because of that, I at that age I was very much trusting, and like I root for people. I root for people who don't maybe have the same background and knowledge that I do, right? And so that gets me in situations early on where I'm like, oh, maybe he's doing this because of that, or maybe he's doing this because of this. Nah, boo boo. He's doing this because he's toe up, dysfunctional, traumatic background, and just what I would consider to be a terrible person. Um, and I had the root for you, like, oh, he can fix this, he can change this. And that's similar to other domestic violence situations, but I'm just describing like how I got there. Why certain behavior wasn't immediately alarming to me. As you guys, I'm sure, probably have heard, domestic violence situations don't just immediately start off with physical abuse, because if it does, usually people just leave, right? Or some people just leave. It's a buildup of all these things, and it really is a buildup of somebody trying you and seeing what they can get away with. And if you give them an inch, they're gonna take a mile, and they're gonna take a mile, and they're gonna take a mile. So, little background about the start, and then I'm gonna just kind of fast forward through a lot of stuff, right? Like I said, I'm just kind of giving you the meat and bones, because I'm just not in the same place, and it doesn't hit the same for me anymore, because I'm just so happy that I have healthy relationships now all around. But anyway, so I met this person when I was 23. We met on, like a lot of people, a dating site. I was very specific on what it was that I was looking for. Me at 23, you guys follow me, I really had it together. Had my own place, own car, budding entertainment career, just goal oriented. They always been somebody who executed. And a lot of 23-year-old females, more specifically females of color, and even men of color my age, for whatever reason, didn't have the same thing that I had at that time, right? And so I had a little bit of flexibility in what those boundaries were, but I were requirements. I wanted somebody who at least had their own place or a roommate situation I would accept, had their own car, right? Had goals, and even if they weren't already in their career, they were moving towards that direction. So, of course, this person lied, because otherwise, I'm not spending the time of day with you. And I'm gonna fast forward through all the things that he lied about, but everything under the sun. Having his own place, that was a lie. Having his own car, that was a lie. He said that he was in law school and was not in no school. In fact, he didn't even have a GED at the time that I met him. And so, of course, at a certain point, all these lies start to fall apart. What I should have done, right, looking back, hindsight is 22, is this first chance that you see that that person lied about something like that, dip out. That's the advice that I would give to any young girl in my situation, or any person in general. If somebody lies about what they do for work, if they lie about whether or not they have kids, run. Like the occupation, family stuff, just all run, because there's no reason to lie when you're comfortable with who you are and you're not insecure about who you are as a person, right? And you really want to be your authentic and true self. Clearly, that was not the case. So I found out all those things was a lie, and I stayed. Well, we broke up temporarily, then we got back, and from that moment on, as the story goes, it gets worse and worse and worse. It progresses from lying about that to lying about everything. Like I said, cheating. Then if you, what's the word, being confrontational about that, then it turns into an argument where that person is raising their voice, and then that's how it starts. It goes from there to, I'm going to raise my voice, to now I'm going to threaten you, to now I'm going to choke you, to now I'm going to try to kill you, and then it goes on and on and on and on and on, right? Until fast forward through November 2021, when I finally had enough strength to say, deuces, I'm done, right? And it was the simplest thing. That it's always the simplest thing that, like, it don't even be what, like, all the big things that have happened, right? It was something so simple. It was the night before, and I had just got my wisdom teeth pulled. And this is context too, because I'm gonna get into like how the stalking starts, right? And anybody who's gotten their wisdom teeth pulled knows, like, bro, you're over it. You don't want to talk. You can't eat. You don't want to do nothing, right? Just got my wisdom teeth pulled. He and those family members had came to see me um, uh, earlier that day and brought me some food, which was nice, like cooked, and then said that he was going to go back to his residence early to start preparing because the next day was Thanksgiving, right? Start preparing for Thanksgiving, and he did have a skill, right, that he didn't apply. He could have turned that into at least a six-figure business, but anyway, where he was cutting hair, and so he had to do some cuts. A lot of people get their hair cut before Thanksgiving. They were gonna go over to his place, and it was friends and who needed haircuts, whatever, right? Cool. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll see you tomorrow, because even though I wasn't gonna eat anything for Thanksgiving, I still was gonna go spend time with the family. And so I'm probably in bed early, like, because I'm over it. I'm tired. I think I got pain medicine or something, and I'm asleep. Something wakes me up, and I know what it was. It was a God thing that woke me up in the middle of the night. Kid you not, didn't text him, didn't call him, because he said he was gonna call me at a certain time, and that didn't take place. But by this time in the relationship, I'm over it. You lying, you lying. If I'm catch you, I'm gonna catch you. But I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to go out of my way to find out this information, right? Because you get to a certain point where you're just like, I don't know. I can't really. I guess you're at the point where you kind of accept the abuse, but like it's just this weird space. So I was in that weird space. Someone woke me up in the middle of the night, and it was God, and it was like a voice literally whispering in my ear, and it was like, "He's out right now, right? He's out right now." And I went to use the bathroom, and I said, "I'm not dealing with this, right?" I didn't try to call him. I didn't try to text him. I went to bed. The next morning, I wake up. Like any holiday for me, it usually starts with me talking to friends and family, and I was calling one of my best friends. Now, mind you, my best friend and his best friend, we introduced them. So this is what's stupid. Well, he did a lot of things that were stupid, but we introduced them, right? So I'm like, hey, what are you and such doing today for Thanksgiving? And she's like, oh, we're about to go meeting his mom for the first time, yada 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 yada, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, girl, go ahead, woo woo. What you gonna wear? We just kikiing and haha. Somehow, what ends up coming up, I didn't bring it up, is that he had went out the night before, and I was like, yeah, okay, who he go out with? This is regular casual conversation, right? And he's like, she's like, oh, such and such, such and such, such and such, and then Josh. And I said, oh, interesting. Right? I'm like, how do you know he was there? Right? Like, how do you know? Did he just say he was there? Are you assuming he was there? She's like, no, he's on my boyfriend, which her boyfriend, right, posted on Snapchat, and his voice is in the background. You can hear him right there. I'm like, oh, send it to me, right? Sends me the video, clear as day. You can hear his voice, and they even show him in the video. I'm like, okay, so we're just that stupid now. We're just blatantly just lying about stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'm still rooting for you, right? I'm like, oh, okay, hang on 1 second. Boom, click. Call him up, right? I'm like, hey, what happened last night? You said you were gonna call me. He's like, oh, I just went to sleep early. What else did he do? Like, I just went to sleep early after the cuts. I just went to sleep. I knocked out, fell asleep, put the family members to sleep, and that was it. And then I was like, oh, okay, you sure? He's like, yeah, I'm, cooking. What time are you coming over? And I was like, oh, whatever time. I told him, okay, I'll call you later. Click. I called my friend, I almost said her name. I called my friend. I'm like, this dude right here really doing it, right? And she's like, well, you see the video? I said, yep, and I'm good. I'm done. That was it. That was it for me, right? So I'm like, click, hang up with her, call him back. I'm like, are you sure that you did that last night, right? And he's like, he gets defensive. He goes into that mode. He's like, such and such cuts word. I told you what took place. Yada, 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 right? I'm over here cooking, blah, 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 blah. Every time he does that, I immediately know he's lying, right? This is one of his tell-all sins. But I knew he was lying anyway. And I said, all right, I'm going to give you one more chance. and I want you to think hard about this because this decision right here is going to change the direction of the rest of your life. He was like, I told you what it was, blah, blah. I said, idiot, you're on video. He's like, what are you talking about? I need to see the video. What are you talking about? I'm like, why do you need to see the video to know where you're at? Because you know where you was at last night. Seeing the video. And I said, not only am I not coming over for Thanksgiving, I'm done. I don't want to see you. Don't contact me whatsoever, blah, blah, blah. Because of the history of our relationship, I knew I had to go absolutely no contact. He had shown me signs of stalking before, but I wasn't able to identify what those signs were of stalking, right? And I'll give you, so let me back up, right? Because we're getting into the stalking situation. We would have like temporary breakups, right? Where it would be like an argument. Okay, we broke up. Then he would come over to my place and would literally sit outside for he would ring the doorbell religiously or sit outside or blow my phone up to the point where I couldn't even use my phone like that day, or sit outside for hours at a time. I'm talking about like 8 to 10 hours. So I couldn't leave without addressing him. In my young, dumb head, I'm like, oh, he really cares. No. This is some psychotic behavior. When somebody says the word leave you alone, you're supposed to leave that person alone. Like I said, I come from a very functional background. I can identify that this is too much. And I'm also not communicating with others about what is taking place. So I understand that my part in this, okay, well, first of all, if somebody's going to abuse you, they're going to abuse you. There's nothing you can do about it, right? But sometimes I believe personally that I created an environment, right, that allowed this abuse to be successful. I can't speak right now. That allowed this abuse to take place to a certain extent, right? Or made it easier for him to abuse me. That's what I'm going to say is my lesson in this, right? So with that being said, back to the story. Sorry, this is a long video, but I want to be able to get it out so we just don't have to talk about it. Boom. So I knew that I had to go no contact. I couldn't give him no window if I wanted to really be done and him get the memo. Because if I would text him or whatever, he takes that and he runs with it. So and I knew he was like a stickler about his stuff. He was never living with me, but in relationships, things get left at each other's place. I had told him on that phone call, I was like, hey, we'll schedule a time where either I can bring you your stuff or you can come get your stuff, right? Like we could talk about that later, but right now I need to be left alone. So a couple days go by, and I want to say this is the Saturday. So if Thanksgiving is on Thursday, this is the Saturday when these events start to take place, right? I'm in the couch, still just got my wisdom teeth pulled, barely eating, and I see a text, and it's like, hey, I'm in the neighborhood, which there's no reason why he should be in the neighborhood. Mind you, he lives freaking 45, 50 minutes away. There's no reason for him to be over there unless it's to see me. And I just wanted to come by and get my stuff real quick. And then that'll be it. And at this point, I should have said no, right? Didn't say no. Still, this part of the cycle of this abusive relationship, still rooting for this person. Or at least wishing that we could be on some type of adult reconciliation. The problem is I'm on a functioning normal person's mind, right? I'm on normal adult things to take place and peaceful resolutions, and this person is not, because this person is not capable. I truly believe he has some type of a mental illness, the way that he behaves. Facts. And I'm like, okay, cool. I text him back. I'm gonna say, I don't want to talk about anything. Just come in, grab your stuff, right, and then dip. So he comes in, he grabs his stuff. It takes him probably about, I'm going to say 20 minutes to gather his stuff. He had a barbecue pit out on my porch or whatever. So he had to break that down. That's what took the longest. And then as he's taking the last thing out, he turns and looks, and I'm sitting on the couch, right? And he's like, but can we talk? And I say, no. I literally just nipped that in the bud. I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about anything whatsoever. Maybe we can have a conversation and have some type of closure later on, but leave me alone, right? Please leave. So he walks out of the door, and I think that he's gone. There's several events that take place over the course of the next 8 to 10 hours. One of them being that he ends up getting drunk, because this is another thing. He's had multiple DWIs, all public record, by the way. Ends up getting drunk in the car and is calling my phone, essentially saying that he has chest pains. Now, mind you, I don't want to give his medical history, but there was reason for me to believe that he might actually be affected, right, in this medical way. So that was alarming to me, because even though I don't want to deal with this person, I don't want him to die, like that part. And he's sitting in his car, belligerently drunk. I come outside to the car, which I shouldn't have did. I should have just called the freaking ambulance. Hindsight's 2020, right? So keep rolling with me. He puts the car in reverse. He has his window down. He's about to back into another car. That's how drunk he is, right? I run to stop the car. I kid you not, it's like a movie. I run, I reach my arm in, and I put the car in park, because I know how his car works or whatever. I put the car in park. Car immediately stops right before it's about to hit. I open the door, I take him out of the car, right? Take his seatbelt off, and I'm, like kind of like a scoop him up, right? And I bring him out to the curb. He can't even stand up. He's sitting on the curb. I move the car in. Mind you, I can hear because he said he was going to call the ambulance. I can hear the ambulance coming up in this entire process. I'm sure there's some type of camera from it, because it's an apartment complex, right? And the car goes, I move the car up and park it. I take his keys, right? And I'm speaking to the next part. Ambulance get there, fire people get there, and he says that he's having chest pains. They suggest that he come and get into the ambulance and go to the hospital. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. I call his aunt, and I tell them what's taking place. And I also say, I don't want him to come back to my place. I do not feel safe, right? This is addressed. Police ask, because he doesn't want to go, which is wild, because you just said you were hurt. But anyway, he doesn't want to go. He asked, the police asked if he can come to my place. I said, no, he cannot come in my place. Every time he's drunk is usually when there's some type of violent altercation, right? It's happened sober too, but for sure when he's drunk, there's some type of violent altercation that he's doing. And so I'm like, no, he cannot come back to my place. I tell his family that he can't come back to my place. And they're like, okay, well, he needs to go to the hospital and figure it out. He's a grown man, figure it out, right? That part. And I'm like, I just want to communicate what's going on. So thus he decides, and because they say he can't come back to my place, they tell him you have two options. You can either get in this ambulance, go get checked in at the hospital, or we're going to call the police to pick you up, because you can't be drunk in public either. His dump butt decides that he's going to run. I kid you not. He runs, tries to hop a fence, and then they swoop around and they get him, right? And they bring him back and they say, what are you going to do, bro? You going to jail? Because I don't remember if he had any warrants at the time. I can't remember. You going to jail, or are you coming to the hospital? He chooses the hospital, right? So I give the keys to the police officer, and I'm thinking it's done. It's over, right? I'm good for the day. He'll figure it out. What happens next is even freaking crazier. Hours go by, right? I'm thinking he done left. I'm not looking at my phone, none of that, right? I'm thinking he done left and all that. No, he doesn't leave. I guess they decided that he didn't. They drove him to the hospital. Supposedly he didn't check into the hospital, and he walked all the way back to my residence, which is at least I'm gonna say close to an hour walk back. And decides that he wants to break and enter my place. I'm still at the couch, right? So I get up and I jam the door, and I hear him picking the lock, because I'm right there. You guys, it was an apartment, so it's small, so you can hear something like that, right? I hear him picking the lock. I get up and I jam the door straight. His feet crossed. I crushed. I know I slapped the shit out of his feet. So excuse my language. and I lock the door and I barricade stuff in front of the door, and I call 911, right? That was the first time that night that the police showed up. At this point, I didn't tell my parents. I've been to tell my parents, right? That part. Hindsight is 2020. So didn't tell my parents. I filed the police report, and they say that they're going to, potentially get me an emergency restraining order, but they had to wait to see if a judge was going to approve it, yada, 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 right? I'm thinking my dog's acting crazy. I'm thinking it's over, right? Okay, the police was called because he dipped out, right? I guess he ran. I'm thinking, the police is called. You've been told. I had already texted and everything. I said, do not contact me. Do not show up at my place. Like all types of stuff, right? You're told and informed. Still not done. About 2-3 hours later, he comes back and Blue, chill out. He comes back and what should we call it? Tries to break and enter again. This time, like I'm sitting there, I had the door barricaded, so it wasn't like he could just easily get in, right? This time I call the police, but I call my parents because my parents at this point live 10 minutes down the street, right? They get there before the police get there, this is insane, right? And what I hear is because he went from one side and he had hopped the balcony because my neighbor came out from underneath me. And mind you don't understand how insane this is though. Like so like there's this and then there's this. I'm on the second floor. He had scaled up and hopped the balcony and was waiting on my balcony. He was about to punch into the glass to get to me. But by that time, the neighbor had came out. My dad was coming out. He had hopped down, right? And then I could hear my dad and him yelling. And I hear the police cars just running up, right? And I'm like, well, whatever's happening, it ain't finna, you know what I'm saying? It's not about to go down right now. And so he dips out before the police get there. And so that just ends up being crazy. They give me my emergency restraining order, right? And so at this point, right, you're thinking like, okay, this person should be done. This person should definitely be done with what it is that they're doing. But they're not, because they're freaking psychotic. Like that part. I'm going to fast forward. 2 days later, mind you, my parents, right, they stepped in, they gave me extra security. I had a lock that was like, let's say pickable, right? Had extra security on it. I had cameras set up, just all types of stuff that needed to, take place in order for me to be more secure at that location, right? He shows up again. Mind you, I have not contacted him. The last text message we have is when he came to pick up his stuff. He's been told, do not contact me. The police call his number, tell him do not show up. There's an emergency protective order. All this is taking place. I kid you not. He shows up and is on Ring camera. And he rings the doorbell, right? And I immediately say, you need to, like, because you can answer through your phone. I'm like, you need to leave. You need to leave. If you do not leave, like I said, I already called the police. If you don't leave, you're going to jail, bro. You're going to jail. And I'm like, don't you care about your life? Mind you, I did a lot of work. I didn't even get into all that to like help him clean up his life and to set him up. It was within 3-4 months, a lot of the stuff on his record that I knew about at the time was going to be expired, and he was going to get a chance to try to get better jobs and other stuff. But there's no excuse. You can get a job. You can go to a warehouse. You can do all types of stuff if you really want to make money and provide for your family. There's no excuse. But anyway, right? He's like, I don't care. I kid you not. This is on tape. He's like, I don't care. I need you to call the police, right? Because I cannot leave you alone. At this exact moment is when it clicked. Oh, he's psycho. He's not, I used to think he was emotionally responsive and immature. I didn't think that he was psycho. Like, this is the moment that I realized, and mind you, the relationship is done. We're 3 years, this is the moment that I realized he is a psychopath. Like, this is insane. Who the hell does that and knows you're being recorded, right? So that happens, right? And again, police show up, he runs off. So they can't catch this dude, right? And so then from there, what happens, like I said, is stalking. He continues to pop up at my place. And we're talking about all the way until we have a court date in January now. He continues to pop up at my place. because he dodged the first court date. We tried to serve him and he dodged that. My dad literally had to go over to his residence, and his grandmother made him come outside of the house because Granny wasn't playing that. They was through with him because of all the stuff he had did to me and how good I was to that family, right? So he's harassing me on the phone. I mean, I can't function on the phone. And even if I block him, right? Because you guys are like, oh, just block him. No, he gets these different numbers through these little apps, and he keeps calling me all day long, leaving voicemails, sending text messages. I mean, all types of psychotic stuff. It's like fantasy stuff that he's had. And then it'd be like, I'm going to kill you. Just crazy stuff, right? I'm documenting all this. We finally get our court date, right? Once we get our court date, from there, I get the permanent restraining order. At that time, I think it was like a year or 2 years that they granted me, right? So you would think that this person would be done. Now we made it to court. It's official. You now have, oh, this is the day. Let me back up. This is the day that I find out that I am the third domestic violence survivor. So I didn't even know that prior to this court date, because they talk about the fact that he has multiple incidents that are domestic violence related. I didn't know that. So I'm at the court and I'm like shocked. I'm shocked, but I'm not shocked. I just didn't know that I wasn't the only one, because a lot of people don't talk. This is the problem. People don't freaking tell their story, right? So you would think we got actual paperwork, we have an actual restraining order, and now your record's jacked up again, apparently for the third time with domestic violence and multiple times with DWIs. You would leave me alone. No. What ends up happening next is he violates that restraining order on multiple occasions. There's multiple incidents I can talk about, more popping up, text messages, phone calls, harassing. One of the days I was dealing with the police, he said that the next time he calls, you need to record what he says. Because based off of the restraining order and how it works in California, because I am a survivor, in that situation, a victim, I can record him without his knowledge, and it's admissible in court because it's something that is protecting me, and he's violating the restraining order, right? A lot of people don't know that. Once you get a restraining order, that victim is able to record and do whatever they need to do in order to protect themselves. So I record the call, and I have the recording. I don't know if I can share it now, so I'm not going to share it. And in the recording, more crazy stuff is said, but the gist of it is that he threatens to start an OnlyFans with salacious videos and photos from me that he has without my knowledge. And I literally say, idiot, you know that's a felony, right? In the state of California. It's called revenge porn. Look it up. It is a felony crime in the state of California. So you're admitting that you want to do a felony. And I said, you know I'm recording this right now, right? And he's like, and? I said, oh, so we psycho for real at this point, bro. You just don't care. You just don't care. Because I think that was during the time, if you look back, kind of like I was different things was taking place, right? I'm not about to stop my life because you're over here psycho. Did I adjust my life? Yes. Did I stop it? No. I was putting out music, and, I was doing what I do, right? And a lot of that is male interaction. So apparently that drove him up his little crazy hole, that I had male people, which I've always had, in my music videos and my content, and it was making him go insane because he couldn't have me no more. Well, boo-boo, you should have thought about that. Anyway, so at that point, I always turn in the evidence of everything, right? And it gets escalated into felony stalking because he was stalking me prior to it, but I think it was like misdemeanor, and they escalated to felony stalking because of that, right? So then let's fast forward. We get to the point where there's a trial. He tries to delay, push stuff off with a trial, yada, 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 to the point where I want to say it took almost a year, at least a year, the trial was going on, right, in the different phases of the trial, which is crazy because it's like we're not dealing with murder, we're not dealing with some billion-dollar lawsuit. Why is it taking a year? Because he was delaying. To the point where we're at now, where he clearly, because you're on tape, camera recording, and all types of stuff, gets convicted of felony stalking. He took a plea, and within that plea, you still get that felony. He's gonna have jail time, and I get granted a 10-year restraining order. So with all that being said, like my healing process, I had so many side effects I just didn't talk about, right? Immediately after, and I think I was going through it during, but I didn't realize the result of it until I was ever removed from that relationship. PTSD up a yin yang. I'm talking about just constantly being paranoid because this person was popping up places that I was at. It was beyond just my residence. It was other places following me, all types of stuff. Of being paranoid about my safety constantly from dealing with that experience. In addition to that, I would say tons of anxiety, right, that I had. Obviously, anxiety attacks. I'm talking about any type of noise that I heard in my place, immediately I'm popping up and I'm freaking out, right? Because I have to be on go because this dude would pop up at any given moment. Body aches, like my body literally just aching, like I can't even describe it. Like, it's on a different level of like, it's not like a workout ache. I can't describe it. It's just like shocks through your body. I literally could not say his name. Now I can clearly say Josh. But I had to do ERMD, which is literally reprogramming your mind to reprogram my association with his name, his face, like all types of stuff. It was like walking out of the house was a challenge for a long period of time. I went to therapy, had an actual psychiatrist, did a multitude of sessions over the course of the past. Where are we in? We're in 2024. So I'd say by the time I got to therapy was like mid, I don't know, 2022, I'm going to say. So for 2 years straight, just therapy to get me to this place. Really reconditioning to be able to trust. I'm talking about because I had such a drastic experience where everything this person told me was an absolute lie. I would just meet people who just, on the surface did not reflect anything like him and just assume that person is lying first and then wait till they show me that they're telling the truth. And I just don't think that's a functional way to operate, because the majority of people that at least I've encountered in my life prior to this person, they were honest people. And don't try to manipulate you and do all these things like to you. And since I've had therapy, I've gotten back to that place. Now, mind you, I don't ignore signs anymore whatsoever. But I do believe that you could just get to know somebody and get to know who they are and go by their actions, not just their words. Give them the opportunity to tell you something and then also give them the opportunity to prove that with their actions. Obviously, dating was a complete challenge. And that was its own process, and that was me healing from that. And I'm so happy that I healed from that prior to getting in any type of like a long-term relationship, because that was not going to work if I did. What else? I'm really just in a different space. I stopped going live as much as I did because of this, because I didn't want him to know where I was at, especially when I was still at that residence, so he could pop up and harass me or try to do whatever he was going to do to me. And it was just a lot. I haven't even gotten into like how it affected me and the Coast Guard. I'm going to say that for another video, but it did, because my base was located 10 minutes from his residence, and that was someplace that he had, followed me to and dropped me off to. And so you guys keep asking those questions. We'll get into that in a whole different video. But it really just it affected my life so much to the point where I can say that now I'm really a different person. The core of who I am and honest and loving and happy and all that is still the same, but just my perspective on life is different. And I don't know, just so much. My maturity is different. How I approach relationships is different. And but yeah, that's what happened. And I don't know who's making it to the end of the video, but I did want to be the one to tell this story and not have it told by somebody else. And I don't consider myself to be a victim. I really do consider myself to be a survivor and somebody who's learned a tremendous amount. And I'm really here just to be an advocate for people who have gone through this. I think oftentimes, I not to say I don't consider myself to be a big celebrity or whatever, but there are people who view me as somebody who's like has a, position of authority or a position of power or like to have a lot of strength. And I appreciate that's all compliments. And there are lots of situations where that is applicable. But I think we like her? Like I look at people like Keke Palmer and I applaud her for really sharing her story, and what it is that she's been able to go through and overcome and conquer, because it can happen to anybody. I don't think it's limited to girls or boys or whatever. Anybody could be in a situation where they're abused, whether it's physically, sexually, emotionally, spiritually, financially. There's not an age limit on it. There's not an age limit on it. There's not, a gender thing. It's just like it could happen to anyone. And so I hope that, and I have been able to help people who've hit me up about their experiences. I hope that my experience is something that helps people moving forward, helping them identify the signs. Like I said, the best tip is one of my biggest quotes now is when people show you who they are, believe them the first freaking time. If somebody shows you that they're a liar, believe them the first time. If somebody shows you that they're violent, believe them the first time. You can love somebody without being with that person. You can love them from a distance and let them work on themselves. You don't have to be with that person. And if you can, get out safely. Create an exit plan, an exit strategy, because it's not simple for everybody. It wasn't necessarily simple for me, but I know that there's much more extreme circumstances when people who have kids with them, and am I happy I didn't have kids with that man. The people who are married, like, dodged the bullet. So I don't know. Say all this is to say that I love you guys. Hopefully we could look forward to the next chapter, which is does not include stalking and domestic violence. It includes a lot of other happy things. So yeah, this was a lot. I'm happy that I'm at this space in my life where I feel comfortable and confident of sharing my story. And I mean, if you have certain questions, like I said, I'm not going to get into like every little thing. Some of it is just me not getting into every incident is really just trying to, because there's other people involved that I don't want them to, what's the best word? As much as they were affected, I don't want them to be affected in the future. So, all right, that's it. Next time.